you on our 2 runs tonight. We have Waifu with us running Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition, a new game run as Dante coming up first, and then JJSRL with Mario Sunshine, an any percent run, plus an additional exhibition of glitches, tips, and tricks. So with that all out of the way, this show is about to get crazy. Waifu, let's rock.
Hello, everyone. My name is Waifu, or you might know me on YouTube as WaifuRuns. I run a lot of different games, but my main squeeze for a long time has been Devil May Cry. I am the world record holder for Devil May Cry 1 and Devil May Cry 3. Working on getting the other ones. But I'm here today to show off my favorite game, and a game in easily my top 3 speedruns of all time, Devil May Cry 3. So I guess we'll talk a little bit about what I like about it, what's cool about it, my story with it and stuff, but it is a bit of a longer run, so we'll do it while we're playing. This is a new game, normal. The basically default difficulty, fresh save file, and we're gonna try to beat it in just about an hour. So here we go. That's time. Playing on normal. So in Devil May Cry 3, there are 4 main styles of gameplay that you can use in the shop here. We're immediately going to switch to Royal Guard. The other ones have their uses, but Royal Guard is easily the best one for speedrunning, and that's because it allows you to cancel almost all of your animations and also does insane damage. Like that, I just killed 3 enemies at the same time with just 1 perfect counter. The downside to Royal Guard is that perfect counter I just did there is literally a 3-frame trick, and the game runs at 60 FPS, so that's 1/20th of a second. If we're playing really well, going to be hitting a lot of those throughout the run, making this run really, really execution heavy and really difficult. The upside is, though, you don't have to. It saves a lot of time when performed at a super high level, but you don't have to do all the crazy strats to speedrun this game. And that was something that I had to get over when I first started running this game, is I was very intimidated by all the crazy gold releases and tech that I'd never seen before. And then I just saw someone do a run where they just played on Trickster style, a way, way more approachable style, and just blasted through the game in about an hour and a half. And I was like, oh, I actually could probably do that. So that's our first mission down. There's 20 to go in this game. At an S rank, that's great. Another great thing about this run is that unlike some of the other Devil May Cry games, the routing, the economy is super, super lax. So while there's all sorts of crazy stuff,
that even at high level, every run, or just about every run in the top 10 does its routing differently in terms of what you buy and when.
Yeah, in Devil May Cry 1, that's the case. But in DMC 3, in DMC 3, it's similar, but in a different way. The route is so simple that you don't need to do anything in particular. The money is almost used for nothing, and almost the entirety of the run is based on just how well that you play each individual section. So like, just how well you're doing at doing the combat in each room is not going to affect other combat rooms. So here we're showing off the other
that works well for me as somebody who doesn't like routing was something that has historically been very intimidating to me. The idea that, oh, I have to remember to do this thing at this time or it's going to mess me up 3 levels later.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that at all with this game, which is really nice. You pretty much just have to take each room at a time at face value, and what you did in the previous room doesn't affect it. So here, the Royal Guard allows you to block and counter enemy attacks, which is what we're using it for. When you see a big shiny like ting sound like that, that's me perfectly blocking an attack. That's way easier to do than perfectly countering an attack. But every time I do that, it stores up a little bit of meter. And then when I do a counter, then that counter does more damage if I have that stored up. So right here, we're gonna do a bit of a shop. I got an S rank on the first 2 missions, which means I'm gonna be able to buy Stinger 2 here. This is the only purchase in the game that like really is affected by your route. Besides that, it's like totally whatever. And then if you miss those ranks, you just buy it later in this mission. So you don't even lose out on it for just this mission.
Oh, nice. It's not even a reset point.
Yeah, it's like not a big deal. I think it loses like 15 seconds or something.
Yeah, honestly,
but besides that,
I was
really
prepping
easy.
to say, hey, if there's a reset point, at least it's early on.
Yeah, but no, there isn't really. The reset point is when you give up.
Fair enough.
So yeah, there's lots of complicated combos and all sorts of stuff that's going on within like the higher level play of this game. But the great thing is it's not that important. Like you can just go through and do the combat and just do it to the best of your ability and not die. And you can get anywhere in like the 130 to 145 range pretty easily. And a lot of the little techniques and stuff that I'm doing are things that can be picked up, even if you're not going to speedrun, just for your own enjoyment. Like before I speedrun this game, I liked using royal guard, but I had literally no idea that you could perfectly counter attacks. I would just store up the meter and then just do an empty release, like without timing it perfectly, just to do damage. And then when I saw a speedrun, my mind was blown. There's a lot of stuff like that in this game. This is the first real boss, Cerberus, bit of a gatekeeper for people.
I imagine that feels the way you were describing learning how to use Royal Guard is kind of like playing a game with somebody and you realize that they read the manual.
yeah, basically. We're like, oh, I see. That makes sense. Like, perfect example here, if you hit Cerberus's foot, they'll fall over, allowing you to do a whole ton of extra damage for free. I'm also doing some tech here with the shotgun. I'm shooting the shotgun way faster than you're supposed to be able to. And the way I'm doing that is I am pressing the block button, the royal guard button, in between each shotgun shot. And that is just canceling the recovery animation, allowing me to loop it over and over and over again. And even if you're not going to do anything crazy speedrun techy, like that is so useful to know that you can cancel your animations with royal guard. You can cancel pretty much every animation in the game, which makes your recovery just super fast. It makes you way more agile. You're not like hyper committed to everything. There's the first boss down. He's going to give us another weapon. So now we're going to have two weapons. We're going to have Cerberus and Rebellion. Rebellion is the big pointy sword that we're going to be using to stinger around the place and have some faster movement. I'm also recovering between those attacks, the stinger attacks, faster by pressing the block button. This mission is, it's funny how accessibility in speedruns works, because the stuff that looks really flashy is often what gets people into running them when they might not be the easiest things. This mission has the only like glitch skip in the whole game on it. That's called Giga Zip. We're gonna skip the Gigapede boss fight by doing a bit of an out of bounds. And for some people, seeing that kind of thing can be really intimidating, because you go like, oh man, that looks really hard. I don't think I could do that. And then I also find for other people, they go, whoa, that looks really cool. I want to try it. Giga Zip is kind of a nice in-between spot where it looks really difficult and it looks really cool, but it's got so much utility and is actually quite approachable, so that people will... I found a bunch of people learn to do it even before they started speedrunning, just because they thought it was cool. Basically what it is, there is... this next room has... It's connected to another room later in the level, but there's a wall in the way. And if I knock this enemy up here and then bait him into attacking me, I could stand on this railing and perfectly time a counter. And because I'm on the edge of the railing when I counter, I actually get what's called a zip, which sends me flying way faster than the game's supposed to be able to, and it puts me right through the wall. And I'm able to aim at the enemy in the background to actually zip through the wall and land at the end of the level, which skips a couple of other rooms and a big boss fight.
Nice.
And that boss fight's really annoying. It's a lot of people's least favorite boss fight in the game, except for maybe Arkham. So just being able to skip that makes the game's pacing a lot more enjoyable.
Now, if you wanted to tell people what you were doing earlier today that made Giga Zip kind of unfeasible.
I actually, it's funny you say that, because I actually did do Giga Zip in that run.
Oh,
but
you did?
Wow. Yeah. Earlier today, I was, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me. I turned 26 today. I was doing this game on Dante Must Die, the hardest difficulty, but I put the final boss in every room on top of the normal enemies. So, yeah, I didn't get any further than this room today. Maybe tomorrow.
that's what it takes to make the game challenging for a world record holder, as it turns out.
I guess. I don't know. I think I could have made it a little easier on myself. It's still a bit hard.
Fair.
So this is Jester. He is. This is one of the few missions where you get 2 boss fights on the same mission. This guy was added in the special edition of the game, which is what you'll be seeing on the HD collection and also on Steam. The non-special edition actually, in the North American version of the non-special edition, normal mode is hard mode, and there's also no turbo mode. Turbo mode is a thing in this game that makes the game run at 20% faster speeds. That's another great thing with accessibility for this game is if you're having a hard time like trying to get into the pace of things, you can just turn turbo mode off and the whole game literally runs 20% slower. It makes everything like way easier to read and much more approachable.
Yeah, like a built-in training mode. That's cool.
Basically, yeah, like a built-in training mode. You get everything to run in slow motion. I will say though, I would not recommend it if you're trying to learn Royal Guard. You would think like slower attacks, easier to time.
No, you need that timing to be what it's gonna be. That makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the attacks coming at you faster makes it so that you don't really have to time them. You can kind of just react. And reacting to something is way easier than timing it intentionally. At least for me personally. Yeah, I am playing on turbo mode, yes. I mean, at the higher level, no reason not to. You literally just save like 10 minutes throughout the game just by playing on a faster speed. So in mission 5 now, you don't know the story of this game. We are Dante. He's a demon hunter who's half human, half demon. In this game, his brother Virgil has summoned this giant tower out of the ground and is going to use it to open the gate to hell. And we actually kind of like humans, so we're going to try to stop him. We're now climbing up the tower.
You know, just a little spat between brothers.
Yeah, you know, just family feud.
The kind of ways you prank each other.
Yeah, I think Steve Harvey would like this game, honestly.
I'm imagining a Steve Harvey gif in my head, and I imagine probably most of chat is coming up with something similar.
The same gif. So we're on our way now to Agni Rudra, which is going to be a double boss fight. We're going to find 2 bosses at the same time. On our way there, we have a classic Capcom elevator. Capcom, all of their elevators are super weak. They can only go up if there's a limited amount of people on them. If you get more than like 6 people on this lift, it just starts to go back down. You have to do all over again. Thankfully, our new weapon Cerberus is really good at crowd control. So we're going to be farming these guys. The amount of orbs that enemies drop you. Oh no! Classic. That's what happens when you fall off the lift. The amount of orbs that enemies drop you actually changes depending on your style rank. You'll see when I kill enemies, I see the D, like dope. The way that I vary my combos is going to make that go up, and the higher that is when the enemy dies, the more money they'll drop me.
Yeah,
so
you actually kind of could tell I was thinking about it because you got to triple S stylish just a second ago.
Yeah,
but you also
so
mentioned earlier that it
attacks
doesn't make a huge amount of difference in most of the routing here, right?
No, the routing actually doesn't really matter too much for it, but you can get some like additional things that'll make things safer. Okay. If you do get more money. And also, I'm trying to make sure that I have as much health as possible. And with more orbs being dropped, it's more likely that I get green orbs that heal me. All right, so now we're going to the boss fight. We're going to be juggling 2 different bosses at the same time here. We want to kill them at the same time because if I kill them separately, there's going to be a big, long 20-second unskippable cutscene. And then they're going to combine, which is going to make them harder to fight.
I was going to say, there's also the whole phase 2 matter, but...
Yeah, that's a bit annoying. So actually, we're going to do a really easy strategy here. That's quite easy to copy at home. The shock and cancel not so much. That's a little difficult. But if you parry their swords twice, then they will get knocked away, and you can just do free damage on them. Shooting them causes them to do like a little tink-tink on the sword, and then they'll always attack. And doing empty releases, I'm intentionally releasing really, really early so that I don't accidentally zoom through the enemy. And you can just do early releases like that to get a really, really clean, consistent parry over and over again. Then boom. Dunzo. Boss is done. Didn't combine. We also now have Agni Rudra, which is going to be way better than Cerberus.
The classic.
So we're going to switch over to that as our secondary weapon. You can only have 2 guns and 2 swords equipped at the same time in this game. So we're going to equip Agni Rudra and Rebellion. Rebellion's going to be equipped the entire time, basically, because the Stinger move is super, super good for speed. But then our secondary weapon is going to change depending on what our better damage output is. And right now, we're going to skill up pretty hard on mission 7. Because we're going to do some new tech, some jump canceling with Agni Rudra. Rebellion and Cerberus don't really have good attacks to do jump cancels with, but Agni Rudra still does. So we'll be using that. Also get some free rides right off the enemy. Much faster than Stingering. Quite fun.
Yeah. Save your wrist for a little bit there till you come back to this. But I feel like Stinger's dashing is one of those techniques that everyone just kind of picked up naturally, especially if you have fancy hands.
Oh yeah, you're just like walking around. You're like, I don't know. I need some like RTS APMs going. I need my hands to go. You got the ADHD. You gotta get the inputs out.
If you're not pressing buttons, are you really playing the game?
I don't know. I don't think that holding the left analog stick in a direction constitutes playing the game. At least not in my soul. You know, I need a little bit more stimulation than that. So the game is mission structured, which is great, especially if you're just like trying to get into things. There's the in-game timer. The in-game timer is like actually really solid in this game. It doesn't count any of the menus or anything, so you can just see like raw how well you did in the gameplay itself. That's quite fun.
A couple questions out of chat if you got time.
Yeah, go for it.
We got what upgrades are important?
The only upgrade that we're gonna get in the entire game is Stinger. We already have it. We bought it on mission 3. Outside of that, everything else can be done with the base move set. So the exception to that, I guess, being Royal Guard, we get the styles that you use in this game level up over time when you kill enemies. Because we skipped the Giga boss fight, we actually lost a lot of experience. So we're not going to get level 2 Royal Guard just yet. We would already have it actually by mission 6 if we hadn't done that trick. But we get it a little bit later because of that. And those you don't even get level 3 Royal Guard in the run, and you don't buy any other abilities or moves in the entire game. So that's pretty much it. So here we're going to show off jump canceling. Basically, when you do aerial attacks, you can jump off enemies' heads, and that resets the recovery. And so enemies like this that don't get knocked away by the attack, you can loop the jump attack over and over and over again. An aerial cross, the jump attack with Agni Rudra is super strong. It does crazy high damage because it's not balanced around you doing it 20 times in a second. So because of that, you can completely kill those greed enemies before they get to spawn anyone. Normally they swing that coffin around, put it in the ground, and have some spirits come out. Those spirits, if they hit the ground, spawn in extra enemies. You're not going to get to see any extra enemies, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. More enemies is slow.
It is
Speaking of
slow.
enemies, the other question that was waiting for you is, what's your favorite boss across the whole series?
Favorite boss across the whole series? Gotta be Credo, DMC4. Best boss fight I ever made. Easily. Virgil 3 is up there though. He's like probably second place from this game. You'll see him for approximately 20 seconds later in the run.
But hey, if you follow Waifu at twitch.tv/waifu, you might see Virgil a lot more often. If you ever
You'll
decide
definitely
to
see
do
a
that
lot of Virgil. Yeah, you might see a Virgil in every room in the game. So here we got 2 more fights with the greeds. This time we get some less spawn in with them. You're still definitely not going to get to play the game. That's fine. Rogar takes a little bit of a backseat at this point. It's still super useful, but it becomes much more situation dependent. You're not so much like setting up and trying to get intentional Royal Guards and releases.
Yeah, you don't have to let enemies have a turn.
Yeah, you can just take away their controller instead of trying to counter them.
Like, they still have a controller, it's just that it's unplugged.
Yeah, it's like little bro.
Exactly.
He thinks he's playing, but he's really not. You'll also see me doing some tech called switch canceling. If I switch weapons in the middle of a combo, it cancels the recovery animation of the current attack I'm doing. So I'll switch back and forth between my 2 different sets of swords in order to continue to loop it. That's great because a lot of the combo enders for your swords end up sending the enemy away. And we don't want that. We want to keep them as close as possible. You know, keep your enemies closer. And here's that boss from mission 2. Becomes a more normal enemy now, more of a mini boss. For good reasons. Not going to be here very long.
Absolutely a staple of a certain era of character action and adventure games, though.
Oh yeah, you gotta show the player how much better they've gotten by giving them a boss fight as a normal encounter. The trick to it though is they give them less HP.
There's a few things. There's that, and you know, if you're playing casually, you picked up some new techniques and things of that nature.
Yeah, true.
To power you up.
All right, so we're in the rain on top of the big anime tower here to fight our lifelong rival, our brother, Virgil here. He's gonna get swept though. This is not MVC3. I'm sorry, little bro. You're not good in this game. Roll guard a little busted. But you can hit Virgil a certain number of times and then he dies. No, a certain number of times before he then auto parries you. So I count till right before he auto parries me and then stop and then bait him into attacking again so that I can continue to loop him. Give little Virgil the fruit loops. Now that we're in mission 8, we've unlocked Devil Trigger. With Devil Trigger, we basically have a super mode that we can use whenever we want. Those little orbs underneath my health bar are indicative of our Devil Trigger. We need at least 3 to activate. And once we do extra damage. All of our animations are faster. We take less damage and also we heal over time. Super, super useful. We're going to be routing that a lot in the speedrun. It's super useful to do enemy wave clears because in this game, there's also a technique called Devil Trigger Explosion. Devil Trigger Explosion, basically I just hold down the DT button and it'll slowly charge up. And then the more you charge it up, the bigger of an explosion or damage radius that you get. And you can actually instantly wave clear most arenas by doing a max charged up Devil Trigger Explosion. And so now at this point, a lot of the run comes down to routing your Devil Trigger. Blocking with Royal Guard is a huge way to build up Devil Trigger, but also damage scales 1-to-1 with DT gains. So the exact amount of damage you're doing is also the exact amount of Devil Trigger that you build. So you definitely get super, super rewarded for doing high damage with more damage. So taunting also builds Devil Trigger. You'll see me do that after enemies are dead. Jump canceling gives Devil Trigger additionally as well. And you can jump cancel the dead bodies of enemies after they die. You see me doing all sorts of little things to farm DT, really juice it, squeeze it out as much as I can. That's another one of those techniques that you can just pick up in your casual playing as well, the Devil Trigger Explosion. Absolutely trivializes a lot of stuff. And if you want to play on the harder difficulties like Dante Must Die, it's absolutely necessary.
That's cool. So it's good to know that like that basic technique that you can get on an easier difficulty and learn how to use continues to be equally, if not more useful as you go towards higher difficulties.
Oh yeah, way more useful. Totally. So we're coming up on the Leviathan Heart.
Sorry, you go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh god, no, you go. You go.
I was thinking, you know, higher difficulties are going to mean enemies have higher health pools. Are you getting more of your Devil Trigger because you're doing more damage to enemies overall to defeat the waves that you do without the DTE?
Yeah, in a way, that's definitely a big reason. Here we have the Leviathan boss fight. We got to kill one of the side organs so that we can attack the middle one. That Devil Trigger Explosion there you saw killed that enemy in the background, and then I did a gold release there. And that release is building my Devil Trigger back up really quickly so that I can charge another Devil Trigger Explosion and kill the boss in one cycle. If I didn't hit that release, then I wouldn't have had enough Devil Trigger to do another explosion, and then I'd have to do 2 cycles. Shout out to Bandit.
Chat, I blinked and I missed it, so I hope you were watching.
Yeah, the game goes by quite fast. Maybe watch it again in half speed if there's a section that you want to.
There you go. You can
yourself.
watch it outside of turbo mode.
Yeah, exactly. Turn off turbo mode for viewing. Nice try, door. They really wanted to hit me. The doors attack you in this game. I don't know. People might not know that, but really, really useful because with Royal Guard, you can block and parry anything in the game, including the doors. So in rooms like this, actually, the strategy is to stand by the door and farm blocks so you build more double trigger and also some release.
Taking it builds up more than doing taunts, or is taunting only possible when they're... Yeah.
You can only taunt every couple of seconds or so. Otherwise, it doesn't build your double trigger. All right, here's another zip. We did that zip on mission 4. This is the other one. This one only saves like 20 seconds and is random. Oh, I did it first try. Okay.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's cool. So standing on the edge of a surface and then doing a gold release causes you to get an insane amount of speed and be able to go out of bounds. Right there, I'm aiming at the enemies across the gap and standing on a stairwell so that I'm able to zip across the gap. Saves like 20 seconds. It's random because the enemy, the Enigma, has absolutely terrible aim, and you can only parry attacks that actually hit you. So if he misses, then you're just kind of standing there waiting in hopes that it'll eventually happen one day. And that was me, honestly, sitting there in hopes, waiting that it would eventually happen one day. When it came to speedrunning these games, I started speedrunning like almost 6 years ago now. And I started with this game, Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights. It's a PlayStation 2 3D platformer Metroidvania. It's a banger.
Shout out to the Scooby-Doo community.
The Scooby-Doo is sick and the Scooby-Doo community is great, but not my type of speed game, personally. I'm stuck at platformers. That's why I stick to Devil May Cry and some first-person shooters. But I was intimidated. I wanted to speedrun games that I thought would be more my speed, but I was like, well, I'm not good enough at that. I can't speedrun Devil May Cry 3. That's scary. So what I did is eventually I built up the courage to speedrun some Devil May Cry 3 as well, but I did it super, super casually, which I thought was actually a really good way to go about it. I just didn't really practice. I maybe watched the tutorial once, and just played the game, but put up a timer. And that's honestly the way I suggest everyone gets into speedrunning is don't overdo it, don't overcook it, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just play the game, put up a timer, boom, you did a speedrun. You don't have to do anything crazy. You don't got to be doing all the skips and boss strats and blah, blah, blah. You can improve so much just by playing the game, I feel like. And this game is exceptionally true for that, I feel. Just by playing the game and oh, this time I didn't die in this room. Boom, I saved a couple of minutes. And you can easily do that. And just do a couple runs. After your first playthrough might take you 20 hours. And then your second playthrough, boom, 10 hours. That's an insane improvement. And you do another playthrough and 5-6 playthroughs later, you're down to 3 hours, I think that's the best way to handle it. Personally.
I love that you brought that up because, like I mentioned during the intro, I don't know if you heard it, but I said basically what got me into speedrunning, what finally tricked me and took me over the edge from, I don't think I'm the kind of person who played the same game for hundreds of hours. I love having a bunch of different games and all that. And it was a game, it was a beat 'em up. It was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. The individual levels are a couple of minutes each, and it was just hey, that level felt really good. I barely got hit, but I bet I could still do it faster. And a combination of that and the fact that the game was still new, and there wasn't a lot of routing. There wasn't, oh, you use this character this way. And I just kind of set up live split and went to town.
Yeah, I think honestly the biggest barrier to entry for speedrunning any game is just yourself. It's just your own ego or your own insecurity about whether you're going to be good enough for it or blah, blah, blah. And I think it's silly. It's just playing a video game fast, maybe you're not going to be as good as you were potentially hoping, but that's everybody. I now have the world record for both this game and DMC1. And when I started, I was too intimidated to like even do a proper speed run. I actually picked up a bunch of other games before I picked up this one, even though this is the one I really wanted to speed run, just because I didn't think I was going to be good enough for it. And like, it was right. I was right. I wasn't good enough for it. But primarily the reason for that is because I was not doing it. You know, like as soon as I started doing it, I got better. It's funny how that works. Like everyone who's good at anything at some point starts off being terrible at it, you know?
Yes, indeed. As Jake from Adventure Time once said, the sucking at something is the first step to being sort of good at something.
Exactly. And we actually had, we have like a kind of a big problem with that in the Devil May Cry speedrunning community because Devil May Cry, really pretty niche, honestly. Like it's kind of big, but it's nothing compared to like a Source game or like a Mario game or something. So the community is always super small. And of course, it's more fun when there's more people involved, you know?
Yeah, so you did something recently that I want to ask you about to help counteract that. Tell me a little bit about the Demon Free.
Yeah, well, building to it. The, sorry, this fight is a little hard.
No, right on. I forgot if we were a little early to get to that. You did tell me when you wanted to mention it. And
yeah, we're here. So, but like a couple of people in the community like really wanted it to grow. And so over the years, we've put in a lot of effort into doing so. Doing like community events and tournaments or like showcases on GDQ is a big one. One of the reasons that I got into speedrunning Devil May Cry in the first place is Maxi Lobes running a DMC1 at GDQ. And we found over time that the best way to get people involved is to just lower the barrier to entry as much as humanly possible. And so I also am a part of the Halo speedrunning community. Shout out to WaifuRuns. Great people over there. But they do this event called the Grand Prix, where they basically do, it's like weeklies if you do fighting games. You basically just, every week they announce a level on a game and everyone has that whole week to get the best time that they can in that level. And you provide like resources. So even if you've never played that game or never tried to speedrun that game before, you can just pick it up and watch like maybe a little tutorial and just pick up like a digestible bite-sized piece of the overall speedrun. And so, you know, me being the content creator that I am, I did the old yoink and twist. I took the idea and put a little bit of a twist on it. So recently I did an event called the Demon Prix. This is the last week of the Demon Prix right now, actually. It was a 10-week event where every week we did one mission from one of the first 3 DMC games, and everyone got to, I provided a tutorial, like, look, this is here how you do everything in the level. Here's everything you possibly need to know. And you just do one level. It's a really digestible, bite-sized piece of the speedrun. We did 4 level, or I think that was 3 levels from DMC3 and 4 levels from DMC1 and 3 levels from DMC2. And it was a really good time. We saw a huge turnout. Lots of people who had never ever speedrun a game before in their lives, picking up for just a level or 2, you know? And I think that a huge part of that was just lowering the barrier to entry as much as possible. Just like, look, you don't have to be super good. This is just for fun. Like, we are just showing how to speedrun this level. It's a lot less intimidating to pick up a 1 and 4 second long level than it is to pick up an hour-long game, you know? And especially with everyone participating together and a lot of new people doing it at the same time, it's been a really cool experience. And we've even seen a couple of those people that joined in on the Demon Prix as their first time running anything DMC pick up a full game afterwards, because it's just like, oh, well, it gives me a bite-sized piece of like the first 3 Devil May Cry games. Like, which one of these is the most fun? Like, do I think I'd like running the whole game of one of these? And some people even thought that that was the case, which is really cool. I was very happy with how that turned out. And I think that more people should run events like that, focusing primarily on accessibility of stuff, because I don't know, just like people get really intimidated, which is fine. It's normal, right? Trying new things is scary. But my biggest takeaway was always that you can do it. The only reason that you wouldn't be able to do something, especially when it comes to something like speedrunning, is when you tell yourself that you can't. As soon as you tell yourself that you can't, then you can't. You're right. You know? But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that you don't have to participate in.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, thank you for being part of the thing you wanted to see, especially for a franchise that you care so much about, and that was something that you almost didn't get into yourself. I appreciate you telling us that story and how you came to help make a positive difference for it.
Thanks.
Very, very
I'll talk about it more in a second, but this boss fight is really sick, so I'm gonna hopefully just delete this entire boss's health bar in an instant. So this boss has a weak point on his eyeball, and so if you do a gold release on the eyeball, this happens.
Nice.
That's one of the harder boss cycles in the game, but easily the most satisfying. That one is hype. But yeah, I don't know. I've always been the type of person that sees something that I feel like needs to be done, and it's like, well, I guess I'll do it. And so I've organized a lot of events over the years with stuff like that, especially ones focused on accessibility. Either like tournaments for games or charity events, that kind of stuff, just to get more people's attention on speedrunning. I think that it's one of those things that people just kind of inherently think is cool, but they never see themselves doing it. But if you just break down those barriers and like put them in a position where they are the person doing it, like then they're like, oh, actually I can do this. And then once they're in, you know, they don't ever want to stop.
Yeah, that's often the case. And I feel like one of the things for me that really helps, and I don't know if you feel the same way, I think what you were getting at earlier kind of alludes to the fact that you might agree. But for me, it was just, hey, the only person I'm competing with right now is myself.
Yeah.
I'm not setting live split up to anything other than my last run or, you know, the time that I set for this level.
Yeah, I honestly, that's a huge personal philosophy with speedrunning in general for me, is that, like, I like that it's competitive. I like competing with other people, but I am really happy that it's asynchronous competition. Like, I compete with other people on the leaderboard, but I don't have to be, like, toxic towards each other the way that, like, certain esports can be and stuff. You know, like, everyone, like, wants to build each other up and, like, wants to see everyone else improve and just, like, push the game forward. And so, like, even if you're competing with other people, really at the end of the day, you're just competing with yourself, right? It's kind of like going to the gym or something. Like, you're pushing yourself to be better, and that's like the whole goal. And I think that people often get wound up in their scope being too big. Like, they're thinking about, oh, I want to, like, be able to compete to be the best or whatever. But it's not really what speedrunning is about, in my estimation, at least to me. It's about just pushing yourself to be better.
Yeah, and I feel like for, you know, games done quick and for a lot of marathons, even when they're showcasing a race, it really is that showcase portion that takes precedence. Yeah. You can tell with some of the big races like, you know, Super Metroid at the most recent mainline event. Those runners absolutely love that game and each other as fellow community members, and that was like the main point of how that went. It's not like anybody was making fun of each other for missing a skip or, you know, upset that they weren't the first person to finish with the race.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I mean, the competitive aspect of it keeps it engaging long term, I feel, but like, there's no reason to be like absorbed in it. Not that many people actually care that much about like placements and stuff. They're just happy that, like, okay, for example, speedrunning is one of the only forms of competition I've ever seen where people will be in the chat of the person that's beating their world record or time and like stoked on them.
Absolutely.
They're like hyping them up, like, yeah, dude, do it. Like, you got this, like, focus up, or like giving them advice. It's like, that's the person that's trying to take away your title or whatever. But people don't care, you know, like, they want you to be better. Even if a lot of it might be because they like want to just push themselves further. I think it's just great. Overall, the whole mindset, I like it a lot. I actually, part of the reason I got into speedrunning is because I was just sick and tired of competitive FPS, because everyone just tears each other down and it's so toxic in that sort of environment. So jumping to something that is still competitive, but in a much more like friendly and like uplifting kind of way, is just like really refreshing to me. Also, this horse no longer gets to play the game. Goodbye, Garion. Yeah, I like that a lot more, because it reminds me, before I started speedrunning, I was actually trying to become a professional skateboarder, and skateboarding is often the same way, actually. Like, everyone is just stoked that people are skating. Like, no one, I mean, sometimes people do, but it's really rare, and it's not like the way the culture is. People don't really get egoed about about like, oh, this person's like better or lands this trick or that trick or blah, blah. Everyone's just like sessioning together and stoked that like everyone's like pushing themselves to be better. And it doesn't matter, like you might be at the skate park and someone's like just barely learning how to drop in, and someone might be throwing 540s, and like people get equally stoked for both people just because they want to see people push themselves overall. And I think the speedrunning community has that mentality just as much, which I think is great. As I found it right at home because of that.
Yeah,
it's an easy transition to be like.
There are a lot of communities. There are a lot of communities where it's like, you know, watching somebody do the speedrun equivalent of like their first heel flip is just super jazzing, because genuinely I feel like you talk to most people who run long enough or run like games that don't have large communities, like you alluded to the DMC community being relative to everything else, of course, but like they just want more people to play their game.
Yeah,
they will walk you through whatever you need to know about how to do the game. And beyond that, it's down to you to find the motivational style that works for you, the level of engagement you want to give. You know, that's why we started talking early on about what tricks are like fundamental and what tricks are kind of more ornamental or more high-level skill when it comes to playing this game.
All right, so we got the second vertical boss fight coming up. This one's a lot harder. It's got a big cycle skip I'm going to be going for here. I'm getting PTSD from my earlier stream. There we go. 4, 5, 6.
Don't worry, Jester's not here.
Yeah, thank goodness. By doing enough damage, we are going to hopefully do. Yeah, I got it. So when you do 40% of his HP, he activates his double trigger. But then you do a little bit more than that, and he does another phase change into switching to Yamato. And that actually knocks him out of the double trigger phase. So you can just completely skip his ability to use his super moves and heal himself and all that stuff. Make the fight way easier. That's a quite difficult cycle, but super, super useful there. Nice, I got mass strength. Yeah, but that's my favorite part about the speedrun community, honestly, is that everyone is like pushing each other and also pushing themselves at the same time, because like it's all about your own improvement, you know, like for your own little personal journey, and having other people better around you makes you better. There's been a lot of like really funny stories actually in the Devil May Cry community of that exactly. I remember something I was working towards making a video on. Maxi Lobes, the long-time DMC1 world record holder back in the day, he intentionally just didn't learn any new strategies for like 4 world records in a row. Because it made everyone else who was also competing at a high level really angry. Because we're all like, dude, you gotta learn these strats. Like, they're faster. Like, we proved that they're faster. He's like, but you guys can't beat my time. And that was his way of like motivating all of us to go get better at the game. And it worked. Now he's out of top 10. There's like a ton of new runners that have much better times than him, even though for a super, super long time, he was like undefeated, like no one could touch him. And because of that, now there's like this mentality of like always routing, always finding new strats in DMC1 because of Maxi being so stubborn, he wouldn't do it. And it's great.
Yeah.
Like, he totally did it intentionally too.
That's actually one of the other things that I really like about speedrunning communities is there are people like you who will know the history of where the community came from, whether it's just because you have been in it and doing it for a long time, or you've heard the history passed down. Speedrunning communities are really big about knowing their history, being able to tell you those stories about. Oh, Dante, you good?
Yeah, don't mind that. He's all right.
Right on. But yeah, you know, it's just like there is that recognition for, hey, here's how we got here.
Yeah, I think it's super important. And even just like, even if you're not doing any of this, the speed running tech yourself, you're not actively doing runs, being involved and understanding that lore makes you, like tangentially involved, and makes it so that it's easier to jump in at any point. Even if you're just like a viewer, you're just like a long time watcher of Devil May Cry speedruns or something, you know, knowing all those little things makes it that much easier to be like connected and a part of it, and to make it feel like a bigger part of the community. And then at some point, if you know you decide that you want to join in, then like you're right there. You haven't missed a step, you know. I think that's really cool. I find a lot of people will do that as well with the tech, where they're just like, they'll pick up one or two things here or there, just little stuff. Like maybe they learn how to do a gold release in this game, or they like just, you know, maybe just take their hand at doing a couple of jump cancels here and there.
Yeah,
nothing
absolutely.
crazy.
Like one of the other things that I have a lot of respect and admiration for in speedrunning is people who just do like glitch hunting or help people figure out routing. You know, it's kind of like what you were describing with Maxiolobes. He wasn't using those best tricks, but the execution was there. So at that point, the rest of you were doing the routing, such as it were.
Yeah, he outsourced the routing to everyone else, but then didn't even use it himself.
Exactly. Well, that's a little different, but yeah. And hey, if you all watching want to get more involved with the GDQ community, you can join the official GDQ Discord and add yourself to the hotfix enjoyer role, so you can keep tabs on upcoming events, talk with staff, and more. Use !Discord in Twitch chat for more info.
Speaking of, there's all sorts of places in the community for speedrunning that you can occupy. Like there's a guy, shout out Chris, who was in the speedrun Discord for a super long time and used to do some runs way back in the day, but recently he came out, and all he does pretty much is just individual level runs. He just does ILs. Does like one mission at a time. But he has found so many new strats. He's helped like completely reroute DMC1 like several times. I think maybe 3 times already since he's like joined the community again and started participating. And like, that's great. Like, dude doesn't want to do full game runs. Like, who cares, you know? Like, he just gets to do what he thinks is fun. And you get to all have your own little impact on the community. In his case, not little at all, huge impact. In fact, he has won every single week of the Demon Prix so far. This one is yet to be seen. It's not done yet till Monday, but he has gotten a perfect score and beaten the world record on every individual level for the entire event. But
wow. Yeah, that's the kind of. It's funny. That's the other knock-on effect, like what you mentioned earlier. You know, it's the kind of thing you often see when a game gets into a GDQ or another big marathon, like Speedons, which GDQ restreamed recently. The kind of excitement and cultivation of extra effort, and it often results in either lowering times or development of new strategies. It's really cool to hear that came out of an event that was also intended for accessibility as well.
Yeah, I think that's the great part about it, because the competition is asynchronous, you know, like you can push yourself as hard as you want to push yourself. You know what I mean? Just because we're doing like one level doesn't mean that you have to not go crazy with it, right? Like Chris going crazy with it. Dude's wild. I wouldn't do that, but he would, you know, and like, that's great. And everyone else gets to benefit from that. You know, no one's like, even if you just find something, discover some piece of tech or whatever, it's like, that's just now you put that in the Discord and now everyone can do it. And everyone's like stoked about it. You know, I think that's really cool. I like the mentality of just building each other up. And that's why I think, honestly, sometimes can be kind of silly when people are like really intimidated to participate. It's like, dude, those people that speedrun those games that you are like might be afraid to speedrun are probably going to be so stoked that you want to do it at all. You know what I mean? Like,
and they probably started from where you did.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're probably in the exact same spot you were before you start, and they're just gonna be like so happy. They don't have any expectations, you know. Like maybe you join, you only do one run, and you never come back. Like they're just gonna be stoked that you did that one run. You know, they're not gonna. It's not like every time someone joins Speedrun Discord, they're like, man, this guy's gonna be the next world record holder. I'm just calling it. You know, like they're not holding their breath on that. They're just excited to see more people engage.
Yeah, like I'm not looking to be the next WaifuRuns, but I will probably play this game again casually really soon, because it's been a long time.
Yeah, that's great. You should. Banger game. This is my favorite game. It's the GOAT.
The game of all time.
Speaking of, we haven't actually talked about the game in like forever. So this is mission 15. First mission in the game. We are going to set up a death warp here because we have a pretty basic movement kit, and backtracking through this section is really difficult with it. So we are trying to make it so that after we collect this next key item, we die, but not before. So this room is really scary because if we die, then we'll get all our health back, and then the death warp's super slow. Excuse me, sir. Pardon me. We got to go through a couple of meat grinders, grab an item, and then die on purpose. We'll teleport back to the beginning where that door was. We also skipped an optional fight. The dials that I was hitting earlier changed the orientation of the rooms. And so if you do the dials in a specific order, you can actually skip an optional spider fight. We do that mad fast, so don't have to do that. And boom, back here. And then we're heading towards the end of the level. We're almost done with the game. This is mission 15. There's only 20 in the game. They get a little bit longer near the tail end, but we're getting there. Mission 16 is one of the levels that we did for the Demon Prix. I think that the world record went down like probably 10 seconds or something crazy by people grinding it for the event, which I thought was super, super cool. And a lot of those new strategies are then getting implemented into full game runs. One of the things that I saw happening because we ran that event is the knock-on effect is crazy. Like you have people find new strats in one room, and then that new strat is usable in every room in the game or whatever. And then all of a sudden you have new strats everywhere, and people are now excited to run full game again. When before we ran that event, DMC was kind of in a lull. It had been a while since we'd done an event or anything, and people just weren't really playing the game that much. But now it's like every day you have multiple runners streaming runs and improving big PBs. I also organized a relay race, which is going to be on April 6th. It'll be hosted on my Twitch channel and also the DMC Speedruns Twitch channel. Basically, it's going to be DMC 1, 2, and 3 speedrun back-to-back from 4 different teams. So you have like someone runs DMC 1, and then when they finish, the next person starts and they run DMC 2, and then when they finish, the next person starts and they run DMC 3.
Nice.
First team to finish.
Series relay.
Yeah, it's fun. And it gets people, you know, excited and going. And because of that, tons of new people, big PBs. We got another, I think, our 9th person to beat DMC 3 in under an hour. Shout out to J Slash. He did that yesterday. Super cool.
Terrific.
Super, super stoked about that. Yeah, that'll be on the 6th. I'll be hosting it, and it'll be on the DMC Speedruns channel as well. But I don't know. Honestly, the biggest takeaway for me is that people need to run more stuff, like events and whatnot. It's like community leaders have a lot of power over how the community goes. People often fall into this mindset of like kind of victimhood about like there's not that many people speedrun their game and whatnot. But there's a lot you can do about it. It takes a long time and it takes a lot of hard work. But I mean, when I first started speedrunning Devil May Cry, every single game had like 1/4 the amount of runners that they do now. And the world records were way, way, way slower. But through the efforts of people like Maxi and Cosmic and Loner Hero and myself, like we actually have like a pretty big and vibrant community. And I think that that's something that's really intentional. That doesn't just like happen on accident. So if you're a community leader out there for any game, you want more people involved, there's things that you can do to get them involved, you know, like making robust resources and tutorials and also like running events and that kind of thing. Just keeping the party alive, you know? It's really, really important. And I got a lot of my inspiration to do stuff like that from stuff like GDQ. I think it's super, super huge. I think it is impossible to understate the impact that GDQ has had on speedrunning culture, honestly, and the size of speedrunning. So it's really cool to be on here.
Yeah,
to be able to talk about it.
Amazing to have you here, especially on your birthday. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy birthday to me. As a present for me to be here.
But yeah, to just go from a bunch of folks playing together in Mom's basement to a local venue to just now doing it across the country twice a year, raising money all across the world, you know, dozens of countries, all that stuff. Yeah, you're not wrong. It's the kind of thing that needs a very intentional hand behind it.
Yeah, it doesn't happen
that,
on accident.
And you know that not everybody's going to stick around. And I'm sure you've like totally made your peace with that. You kind of said as much earlier, but
yeah,
you know.
totally. I mean, it happened. Like, not everyone is bound to stay forever, and that's super cool, right? Like, everyone has their little part to play, and it's just people are going to be stoked that you're involved at all. It takes a lot of effort to get people involved, so if you want to do those people a favor, you could even think of it like that. It's like, hey, maybe we'll make these people really happy to just like have someone run their game, even if it's just like a one-off thing, because there are people that are out there that put a lot of effort into that kind of thing. And I think it's great. I was super stoked about it. I mean, I was directly inspired by the WaifuRuns community hugely in many ways, for both the relay races and also the Grand Prix, the Demon Prix for Devil May Cry. Like, I just joined the Halo speedrunning community because I like the games, you know? I thought it'd be fun, maybe some good content, and I'm like, man, this is by far the most active speedrunning community I've ever been a part of. I'm like, how do they do it? You know, and I'm like, well, maybe, you know, Halo is just a really popular franchise. That's what it is. And it's like, I'm sure that helps, but it's definitely not why. Like, they put a lot of effort into making sure that they're putting on community events that people feel super welcome. There's a ton of super robust resources and stuff, and that does absolute wonders. It's crazy.
Definitely. And then, like, with Halo in particular, since there's a multiplayer component, you'll just catch people in the Halo speedruns community just casually playing, funning around, and putting together multiplayer lobbies. You know, like Brian Otto, Nervy, a couple of people like that that I know from Halo runs are absolutely down to play Halo with their communities regularly.
Yeah, it's great. I think that helps keep it alive. It's awesome.
Hey, before we get too much further, about 20 minutes ago, someone specifically said that I needed to tell you that, and I quote, "Your hair is pretty."
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Wanted to make sure we got to that.
Yeah, thank you, Batman. Appreciate you. All right, we're coming up on Doppelganger. For the longest time, we literally never used any styles in DMC3 except for Royal Guard in the speedrun. But very, very recently, we came up with a strategy between me and Stubby to actually implement the style that you get from fighting this boss, Doppelganger, into Mission 19, which is great because it adds a whole new layer of accessibility to it. Before, I did say that there is pretty much no money route in this game. That was pretty true. You before had to collect like one or two little like groups of orbs so that you made sure you had enough money for certain things. But now, because of this new strategy we came up with, there is literally no orb things that you have to grab in the whole game. We recently routed it out, so it's faster to do that. And also, you don't have to worry about money pretty much at all. Whereas before, there was a bit of margin for error, but it was easy to do. Now it's just completely gone. We won't see that until Mission 19, but we did just unlock that by beating that boss. Mission 18 here. This is the banger. Best mission in Devil May Cry, easily, in my opinion. And is absolutely just a showcase. It's a boss rush, so you'll see some crazy stuff here, some fast boss kills. Right at the start, we have this chest fight where if I use a holy water, then the king becomes vulnerable instantly, which is great because as soon as you kill the king, as you know in chess, the game is over. And then we have a big old board of bosses that we have to fight. We only have to make a circle, and the smallest circle you can make is with 3 bosses. Agni Rudra, Cerberus, and Beowulf. So we're going to be switching over to Agni Rudra again because the Agni Rudra weapons super good against Beowulf and Cerberus. And with these refights, the bosses are actually just as difficult as they were earlier in the game. There's no less health or anything. But because you have these better weapons that do maybe elemental damage or just have better coverage, they are a complete joke. Good boy.
Yeah, this is very much, it's meant to be casually, but in the speedrun in particular, it's the kind of putting it all together segment of the run.
Yeah, it is really. It's like, okay, you did it all in pieces before, but let's just give you one big chunk of challenge here and see how it goes. Also, you didn't have Devil Trigger for fighting Cerberus or Agni Rudra before. That makes the fight a lot easier.
Didn't have to worry about the phase 2 here. Nice.
Yep, definitely no phase 2 here. And we got one more opportunity to show off that really sick quick kill on Beowulf here. Hopefully I'll get it. Oh, wrong weapon. I hit the release, but I didn't hit the right spot. Aw, man, and I didn't stop him. Low.
Even record holders are human sometimes. Or like part human. Yeah, it's not
Half
important.
human.
Exactly.
Game's hard, man. It's a hard speedrun. It's one of those things, though. The nice thing, especially about DMC3, is you can just die and die and die and die, and the game will never stop you from beating the game. Like,
True.
It might take you a long time to get past a boss or something, but you're never gonna game over or like run out of continues. You just keep bashing your head against the wall until you make some progress. All right, here is where the new thing gets found. So Doppelganger is a style that allows you to duplicate yourself and have basically just 2 times the damage output, but it uses your double trigger to do so. We are going to use that to hopefully skip. I'm gonna equip this rocket launcher for safety as well, to skip a phase on everyone's least favorite boss fight.
Rocket launcher for safety, as one does in a Capcom game.
Always, the rocket launcher is saved. Mission 19 is a bit of a gimmick mission. There's going to be 2 common encounters that just have straight gimmicks on them. This first one does not, but the second one is going to have these mirrors, where the only way to damage the enemies is actually to hit the mirrors. We're going to use Doppelganger to do really, really fast damage on the mirrors, so you're not going to have to worry about them moving, because they incrementally move. So you can see there's 2 Dantes now. Really cool to finally see some other styles being used in the speedrun. It's because you have to go to the shop menu to switch between them. That's usually why they lose so much time to switch styles. It's just not worth it. But because you're able to skip all of that money collecting throughout the entirety of the run, this actually saves time overall, even though on this mission it's a little bit shorter, or a little bit longer, I mean. Oh man, this guy was too far away. That's fine. So for Arkham, he has 2 different types, two different phases that he can do. He has this big blob body phase where he throws attacks at you. But then after you do a certain amount of damage, he'll go underground and spawn in a bunch of dolphins. You have to kill all of the dolphins before he comes back up and you can damage him again. We've been saving money so that we could use holy waters, which just do instant damage to him. But we don't have enough to just kill him outright like that. So we have to do enough damage with our swords and stuff before he dives away. So if I do it right, then he should dive away. He should not dive away at all on this first phase. No, unlucky. That's okay. This is why I grabbed the rocket launcher, just in case. So we can...
Wave clear, such as it were.
Yeah, the rocket's super good against the dolphins. So we can
Don't quote that.
solve that.
That's animal violence.
I don't think that... Well, actually, never mind. I was going to say SeaWorld might not care, but...
No, in this case, being that they're spectral and all that, and you're a half demon, I think we can make some minor exceptions.
Yeah. Please die, sir. Thank you. There we go. That's a really new strat, though. So I'm not super surprised that I had some trouble with it. And then we do some damage here. And then we have invincibility frames. while using holy waters. A little scary, but all good. That second phase, you can't use your Devil Trigger or your styles, so it's a lot more restrictive. You have Virgil fighting with you. He basically works exactly the same way Doppelganger does. That was a good recovery. Back to Rail Guard for the final boss fight. We're coming up on time here real soon. Similar to the Virgil 2 fight, we are going to be getting him to a certain health threshold and then killing him before he gets to activate his Devil Trigger. But we need as much Devil Trigger of our own as we can by that point. There we go, GG, that's time. And that's Devil May Cry 3, new game normal. And it looks like
my friend.
roughly 104, nice, that's not so bad.
Yeah, 104.14 thereabouts.
Yeah, so with loads removed, that's probably like a 102. Pretty solid. Didn't miss Giga Zip, that's cool. But yeah, that's the game. Best game of all time, the GOAT with the sauce. Devil May Cry is awesome. I know that people don't necessarily associate Devil May Cry with speedrunning, but we have a really awesome community. It's getting bigger and bigger all the time, and we have a lot of really cool resources and run some cool events that you should check out, participate in potentially. But yeah, thanks for having me. I don't know if you want to talk about some more stuff. Or...
Where can people find you, Waifu?
Oh yeah, me. Again, it's my birthday, so if you want to do me a favor for my birthday, maybe throw me a follow at Waifu on Twitch. I stream full time. It's been my job for like 5 years, 6 years now almost. I also make YouTube content. I make video essays about stuff like Devil May Cry, speedrunning, and also Halo speedrunning and Left 4 Dead and that sort of fun stuff. You can find me on YouTube at WaifuRuns or WaifuRuns TV. I have 3 YouTube channels. But I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for having me. Hope you had fun. Go speedrun. Speedrunning isn't as hard as you make it out to be. It's all in your head. If you think you're not good enough to do it, you're right, but that's only because you have that mindset, and you can change that at any time. You can just decide, look, I'm not gonna be great at it right away, but that's okay. And then just go do it and have fun with it. I strongly recommend that you do. I think that speedrunning can not only just be a fun hobby, but it can be emblematic for life as a whole. And showing you that you can push yourself to be better than you thought you could in all aspects of life. I've definitely found that for me, speedrunning is a way to constantly reaffirm to myself that that's the case. And I love that about it. So I hope that you can get something like that out of it too.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I couldn't have asked for a better first run for this show and for a more inspirational way to end things. We'll let you get on with your evening. Please enjoy the rest of your birthday. Get yourself some cake or something.
Thank you. And thank you again to GDQ for starting it all off and making speedrunning what it is. And thank you to Teachery for having me on for your show. I hope it goes well. I hope you guys have a fun time with the next run. And thanks again.
What an ordeal.
My pleasure. Thanks so much. Yeah, again, big round of applause, please, in the chat for Waifu. Please, type 1 if you enjoyed yourself. Throw out your favorite emotes. Make sure to take care of yourself. We're going to take just a short break while we